Hello, and welcome to Good Conversations. We're honored to have with us today a former chairman of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes, Thomas Bearhead Swaney. He was involved in many of the most important issues of the past half-century on the Flathead Reservation. He was chairman in the late 1970s, at a time when the tribes, here and elsewhere in the U.S., were just beginning to reassert and reclaim the sovereignty, the sense of self-determination that had been stripped from them by U.S. policies over the previous century. The recent election of Barack Obama as our next president, and also of Denise Juneau as Montana's Superintendent of Public Instruction, seems to signal a new era in American politics, or does it? I look forward to discussing this and other issues with Bearhead over the next half hour. Welcome. Well, before we get to other things, what do you think of the recent elections?
I was an Obama supporter when he first got on the Senate, because the Republicans didn't have anyone to run against him, so I thought he must be pretty good. Huh. So I've been his supporter for a long time. Denise, I didn't know. I know her mother and her dad very well. Her mother is a legislator in Helena from Browning up in Browning, and
yeah, she was on this program for a half hour.
And it tells in the map of Montana. Montana still never voted for Obama, but the places that did vote for Obama were reservations.
Mm-hmm. He won Lake County, didn't he?
Yeah, and not even Mike Mansfield did that. And he was kind of the god of Montana.
Is that because Satch McDonald won Lake County?
I don't know. I think it's the United States is finally coming to realize that they have no fear of blacks or of Indians, and that they were afraid of them. And in my opinion, they were afraid of them before that, because they only saw the bad part of the news. Mm. They never saw guys like Vernon Jordan, or they only saw the H-Rap Browns and the and those guys that were the radicals, which I think were necessary. Mm-hmm. Carlos Smith and the Olympic athletes that did the black salute in 1968 in Mexico, I thought was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they're protesting, and because it was true, they were protesting what was right. They were protesting racism. And racism is still an integral part of this country. Mm. We're not going to get rid of it, ever, as long as there are different colors of skin and different religions. We're never going to get rid of it. Mm. But we can deal with it. It's getting less and less as the older generations die off and the younger generations are learning new and better things. It's tolerable now, but black people have come a long, long way from even in my time. Yeah. Yeah.
You probably couldn't, I mean, it's hard to imagine Barack Obama being elected even 20 years ago.
Oh, no.
Especially with an African name, middle name of Hussein.
Hussein and Obama, like they said to George Bush, what do you think of that Obama? And he said, you mean they haven't caught that guy yet? But no, well, in 1984, I was at the Democratic National Convention, and I was a supporter of help me.
In which year? 84? Oh, Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Jackson, yeah.
Well,
I was the only one of the Montana delegation that voted for him.
You were the only one in the Intermountain West.
In the Intermountain West. I later had dinner with him in Missoula. Had kind of a private little soiree, and Joe McDonald, he didn't know I was even in the, he didn't even know about me. Joe McDonald brought up my name. he said, "You get up here." He gave me a big hug and told me, but you know, then that's when I told him he didn't have any red in his rainbow. Was at the convention. He had every minority introduce him, except an Indian.
Which is strange because he came to the Arlee powwow when he was running, didn't he? Or was that 88?
After, yeah.
That was 88 when he ran again.
And I laughed after I found out. And I went and investigated, and they said, well, we asked one, but he'd showed up too late. He had one. He had a Jew, he had a disabled person, he had a Mexican, he had a elderly, and a Chinese, and every one of those two.
Well, that's an interesting link to Denise Juneau, because in some ways her election to statewide office in Montana is just as historic an election achievement as the election of Obama nationally.
Oh yeah, we've been kind of knocking on the doors, you know, with her mother and Bill Yellowtail and others that ran and had minor positions within the state and within the counties and won. But I didn't think she would win. And to win in Montana, primarily, but we're a crazy state too. We're not level.
Yeah.
We'll have a Democratic governor and a Republican Senate and House. And
a purple state, as they say.
Yeah, a purple state, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Do you see a connection? I mean, the struggles that you were directly involved in the 70s and 80s, this in a sense is building on kind of the ground that was broken during those days, isn't it?
Yeah, but when you said struggle, we struggled.
Yeah.
Now they're not. I didn't see any struggle with Denise Juneau in terms of a white backlash or a backlash. I never heard anything about her. And very bright girl, in my opinion, and personable. But it's kind of grown, I guess. The acceptance of Indians in public office have grown, and there's still a few of the old, the old rednecks left that.
Sure.
But they're dying out.
Well, I remember when we were working in '84 on the county caucuses here, you became the first Native American delegate to the state Democratic Convention in the history of Lake County. And then I think about...
If you remember, they never had a caucus after that either.
Yes, that's right. It's been primaries ever since. Are you saying that's not just coincidence? I mean, and then, you know, you look at Joey Jane's election in Lake County as the first Indian person elected to a legislative seat in the county, and now Denise Juneau statewide. I mean, maybe these things happen in steps. I don't know.
Well, so it's been a long time. I guess slowly over there'll be more and more. There'll be more and more people that, like, especially in the counties like Bighorn County, not so much Lake County, because they got it gerrymandered squirrely, I think. And so, but like those reservations that have the majority of the vote. Now, Bighorn County, when I was there at the Crow Agency, there were no Crows in any of the positions in town or in the county. And they were all, and then after that, and they got the Indians to vote, they put a lot, they had a Bighorn County, a Crow that was a county sheriff, and they had a lot of positions there. So I think it's slowly coming around.
Yeah. These divisions are slowly breaking down, it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think is going to be Let's take Denise Juneau. What do you think are going to be some of her primary challenges in occupying that position in the state?
I think what she's going to have to address is Indian education in the sense that we're not doing very well in the public school system. And there's a number of reasons why. And one of the major reasons why is the lack of parental support. We are kind of like the blacks, a lot of single-parent families, women trying to raise a family and work and can't give their kids the support in the school system that they need. You show me a good family and I'll show you a good student. We're not supposed, no, if our son or our daughter is an athlete, boy, we really get behind them. But that same athlete can be a D average student. And then they're really good and they get into university and can't make it. I think she's going to have to address those issues. I think the other issues that she's going to have to address is get the universities to have more of a contact with reservation schools. You had a program here where they were up in Kalispell from Bozeman, Montana State?
Yeah, Jeffrey Gamble.
Yeah, and we're going to have to do that with all the universities. To get them into especially the rural schools and the Indian schools, and talk to them about grades, not about basketball. Talk to them about grades and get in early in the 7th and 8th grade. If they're juniors and seniors and they're failing students then, it's too late. So that's one of her, I don't know if that's within her realm of responsibility, but then there's always the thing of this economy is what's the budget going to be like? Yeah. As Barack Obama said, you know, it's not over and there's going to be a lot of pain. Yeah. And so I don't know what the budget's going to look like. Yeah. Worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, they say. Yeah, and so, how much support, you know, that's what I look at as Joe McDonnell once said, our schools are intolerable. He said, and I don't know why white kids get through them. He says, and Indian kids don't. Well, we found out over the years that we start losing them about the 3rd grade. And if you went back and you look at the 1st grade enrollment, go to that same year in the 12th grade enrollment, and look, and I watched the honor roll in the papers. Most of these schools are over 50%. We're not carrying 50% honor roll. Now there's reason for that. And principally, I think, in my opinion, it rests at home. We're not making our kids perform the way they should. They're not seeing that they do their homework. They're not seeing that they do this. They're not. And single family mothers, you know, that's hard for them. We have to find some system, and that's locally. We have to do that locally. Right.
And the question is how, though? I mean, it's difficult to address, isn't it? I mean, if it's in the family home, how do you begin to make a difference there or change it?
You know, one of the best coaches on this reservation was an Indian. And he had an exceptional football, basketball, and track team. His very first year here. because he knew the kids and he knew the parents. And if a kid was hurt, he'd go to the home and see if the parents were taking care of their kid or if the kid was being taken care of. And he took an interest not only in the kid but in the parents. And he visited with them and they liked him. And he wasn't like most teachers when I was growing up. They were up here and we were down here, you know. You didn't visit, they were kind of like a priest, you know. And, oh God. Anyhow, but he was one of them because he lived with them. I mean, he visited them and he took care of them. I won't give you his name, but his initials are Larry Anderson. And, but a fantastic coach and really was concerned, in my opinion, about the student as a student and concerned about the family. And he knew the good families and the bad families. And bad being not bad in the sense, but poor, not having the advantages of other people, you know, underemployed and living in under substandard housing and things like that. But I think it takes a role of teachers have to have more activity, more connection with the community and with the families of the students. They can't just go to class and at 4 o'clock go home. They don't even, some of them don't even live in the community. The other thing, we got to pay them. If we want good teachers, we got to pay them. And when I look at the average salary of a automobile worker in a Chevrolet, Ford, or Chrysler plant as being $47 to $74 an hour.
Well,
and we're trying to pay our base salary for a teacher here in Montana, something like 20-some thousand.
I've heard some rebuttal of the claim of 74 an hour, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break here, and we'll be cutting away for 1 minute. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue our conversation with Bearhead Swaney and maybe revisit some of the things he dealt with when he was chairman of the tribes during the 1970s. Don't go anywhere.
There is a dangerous storm we must watch for. The storm is stroke. If you notice or experience these sudden warning signs, call 911 immediately. Numbness or weakness of the face, arm, or leg, especially on one side of the body. Loss of vision, speech, or understanding. Trouble walking or dizziness. Sudden severe headache or confusion.
Preserve our nation.
Know the signs and watch for the storm. You could save a life.
In February 2009, most television stations will convert to digital transmission and no longer provide analog service. Low-power translators and Class A stations are not required to cease analog broadcasts. For more information, call 275-4878. If you watch television on cable or satellite only, you need not do anything. If you watch free over-the-air TV, you may need a converter box if your TV set is not digital. Set-top converter box coupons worth $40 toward the purchase of these devices can be requested by calling 888-388-2009 or visiting www.dtv2009.gov. When purchasing a set-top box, be sure it has analog pass-through if you intend to watch analog and digital stations. These devices are listed on the dtv2009.gov website. Call 275-4878 if you need assistance or information.
And we're back, continuing our conversation with Bearhead Swaney, former chairman of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. And Bearhead, I was wondering if you might be able to tell us a little bit about what led you initially to run for tribal council and then for the chairmanship.
I came home from California in 1967, the fall of 1967. And I was in the Bureau of Indian Affairs in what they called the Employment Assistance Program, which was the old relocation program, which was sending Indians off to the ghettos in the cities. And I was a part of that, and I thought, oh. After I got down and saw what I was doing, and I had a one-year contract. As soon as my year was up, I come home to unemployment, and this is when the environmental movement got rolling. And I'd met Dave Harriman before I left for Crow in California, and he got me involved in the environmental movement. And I made a lot of talks.
Dave Harriman, who ran the trout farm on Post Creek and a neighbor of yours.
And I stayed at his house for years, and my family gave us his house there. He got me in, and I made a lot of environmental movements. And then I came home from California and got politically active. And the whole Indian country was getting politically active. As a result of the black movement, the AIM movement, and there was even a gray movement, the old
Gray Panthers.
Gray Panthers, yeah. So I did a lot of public speaking at universities and different clubs and League of Women Voters and things like that about the environment and about Indians, and became quite well known in western Montana. And I was going to run in 1970. And I went to my friend, and I won't mention his name, and we were playing pinochle. And I said, well, I'll tell you like this old councilman told you, get on the tribal council, and you make enough money to put bread on your table, but you won't get rich. Get a few cows, and his wife blew up at me. So I withdrew my name in 1970. I thought, if I have to lose friends, I'm not going to run. Well, getting more and more politically active, and in 1972, I ran and won. And I chose not to run the second term, the next 2 years. And I wanted to be on for the negotiations of Kerr Dam. And I wanted to be a part of that. And running, and I won. And then there's this scramble you don't see. Who's going to be chairman? Who's playing the game out there? And I got to looking, I thought, I know who can get the job as chairman but don't want it. And I know who wants it but can't get it. So I sneaked in there and got the chairmanship. And being vocal and aggressive, saying things what I believe in saying, I immediately isolated. I got the council, half of them were opposed to me, very opposed to me. The old laid back, don't ruffle anyone's feathers. And we stopped, well, Joe McDonnell and I, before I got on the council, we stopped the logging of Flathead River. And then later on, well, you got those things on the river and where we...
And that's a great story in itself that we should describe in greater detail when we have time.
Yeah, and anyhow, so I got the chairmanship And then this sheep on Wild Horse Island controversy came up. And the state was going to open up hunting to the white man, to the sheep on Wild Horse Island. I said, no, you're not. I said, that's within the exterior boundaries and we control the hunting and fishing. Wambach was his name. I can't remember. That booklet I gave you was in there, all those newspaper articles. He said, I not only control the fishing and hunting in the state, I do on a reservation. I said, well, I'll tell you what. You try and I'll put a boatload of Kootenai hunters on that island and you won't have a sheep problem in one day. And so that's where we got the sheep. Well, I got an awful lot of publicity.
We're almost out of time. We're going to have to continue this on the next program, but if you could summarize.
Anyhow, we got the sheep.
Yep.
And now we have a thriving sheep herd, and we've replanted them, and we even gave 30 to the Rocky Boys, I understand. So I won that case, but I caused an awful lot of anger within the tribal council, and they got rid of me for that reason. But I won a National Conservation Award for the same thing.
Almost another example of you can't be a prophet in your own land.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great story, and I'm sorry we're out of time. We'll have to continue talking with Bearhead more in the next half hour. I'm happy to say that Bearhead will be returning next week, and we'll continue hearing his accounts of being tribal chairman in the 70s, about the efforts of the tribes to reclaim their sovereignty and other issues. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time.